Hold your horses, everybody, because I have some breaking news. Breaking news. Well, hello, all of my students. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Jay, and welcome to another English lesson here on the channel, where I have the opportunity to help you to improve your English comprehension, vocabulary, and fluency. Today I have another English Through News lesson. I hope you're ready for some learning and some laughter. I'm going to teach you a number of English vocabulary words, phrases, and we're going to have a great time along the way. Let's dive into today's story. According to NBC News, the Supreme Court set to decide future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. So when someone decides to do something, they are making a choice, making a decision, okay? And so the Supreme Court is about to decide on birthright citizenship. And so my understanding of birthright citizenship is if you are born here, then you will automatically be a U.S. citizen. And I think, if my understanding is correct, he is trying to change that, okay? And so now it is before the Supreme Court. Let's continue. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a major case about whether President Donald Trump can limit citizenship at birthright through an executive order. Okay, so what does the word citizenship mean? Okay, a legal membership in a country, giving a person certain rights and responsibilities, okay? So that is a very sound definition for citizenship. Some people have dual citizenship, meaning they may be a citizen legally in two countries. I know some people have citizenship here in the United States, and then some may also be citizens of Canada. I heard they have very good health care. Okay, so an executive order. Okay, this is a great vocabulary word, executive order. And we usually use this word when we're talking about the authority that a president possesses or has, okay? So let's look at my definition of executive order. A written directive, okay, or directions, a written directive issued by the president that tells government agencies what to do. Sounds like some power. So an executive order says something must be done. Okay. In my house, the parents have executive order. Okay. On the job, the boss has executive order. They basically have a say in what can be done and what cannot be done, okay? Let's continue. The order signed on January 20th, 2025 tells government agencies not to automatically recognize children as citizens if their parents are in the U.S. illegally or only on temporary visas, okay? Yeah, so that might be a problem. That is a scary situation to be in. So notice the order says that government agencies are not to automatically recognize children. So in other words, if a person or a couple has children here in the United States, they are no longer automatically or immediately considered citizens of the United States. So let's look at this word temporary that I have here on the article. What does temporary mean? Something that is temporary, lasting for a limited time. Something that is not permanent, okay? A cut. If you get cut, if you fall down and cut your skin, the injury is only temporary, you might say. Or you might have a job that is temporary. A lot of people work for Amazon or UPS, and they have temporary or what they call seasonal jobs. And so they only last for a short time. Okay? Now, before we move forward in the second part of the article, let's quiz your comprehension. What is citizenship? I want you to answer that down in the comments section while you are watching. What is citizenship? I explained it just a few moments ago. Okay, let's continue in today's story. The case centers on the 14th Amendment. Okay, what is the 14th Amendment? The 14th Amendment is a part of the U.S. Constitution that defends or defines citizenship and equal protection rights. So now people are challenging the 14th Amendment, okay? Can a person be born in a country and just automatically be considered a citizen? I'm not sure how it is in other countries. If you're from another country, let me know down in the comments section. Do they allow automatic citizenship in South America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa? Let me know what the rights are in your country. What are the laws in your country? Is it something that's automatic? If me and my wife come to your country and she gets pregnant, is that child considered an automatic citizen? That is something I would like to know. Let me know, guys, down in the comments section. Okay? The case centers on the 14th Amendment, which has long been understood to guarantee birth citizenship to almost everyone born on U.S. soil, except for children of diplomats or occupying forces. Okay, so diplomats, they can't come over here, or foreign politicians have children and they're automatically considered citizens. Lower federal courts issued, look at this word, injunctions. Okay, an injunction. What is an injunction? An injunction is a court order that stops a law or action from being enforced. Okay, so an injunction here in this case is basically saying that they're trying to stop President Trump from changing this particular law. Okay, so an injunction has been issued. All right, this is very interesting because a lot of people are curious about how this is going to turn out. Lower federal courts issued injunctions blocking, that's a great word, blocking, okay? So trying to stop or hinder progress or from something happening. So if you watch sports, a defender can block the ball from going into the goal. In basketball, you can block a shot. But then you can also use block to describe distance. Okay, so you can say the restaurant is 4 blocks down the street to the left. Okay, a block is something that is a piece of wood, a block of wood. So depending on how you use the word, it can have a number of meanings. One mean slang term we use to describe someone who is ignorant, we say, "You're such a blockhead." Okay? But an injunction is in order to block a law. Okay? Now the justice will review a class action lawsuit called Trump versus Barbara. I hadn't heard of that until I read this article, okay? An injunction or a lawsuit called Trump versus Barbara. Okay, let's look at this a little bit closer because this is interesting to me. Let me see, I have it here in my notes. Here it is. The official name of the Supreme Court case challenging the order. So this particular injunction, this lawsuit, all of this about birthright citizenship, this is legendary. We are living through this as it happens. This is so amazing. Okay, Trump versus Barbara, which challenges the order on behalf of children who would lose birthright citizenship if it takes effect. So you have some people that are concerned about the children. If you remember in one of my lessons earlier this week, I talked about the word advocate. So someone who stands up for the rights of children. The court is expected to hear arguments in the spring and issue a ruling by early summer. Okay? So a ruling is a final decision made by a judge or court. Now, I would go so far to say that's an official ruling. You can have a ruling in your family relationships, okay? Daddy, can I go to the store? No. Then the child goes to ask the mother, Mommy, can I go to the store? And she may say, well, what did your father rule that you could or could not do? So it's a decision that someone has made. We're almost done. Supporters of the order say the policy is needed to address illegal immigration. Okay? So a policy is a plan or rule created by a government or organization. A policy. So you might say, what is your policy when it comes to being late to work? Or you might say, what is the policy when it comes to carrying a firearm? So what is the law? What is the procedure? What is it that I can do or can not do? This is so interesting. Supporters of the order say the policy is needed to address illegal immigration and so-called birth tourism, where people come to the U.S. mainly so the children will be born as citizens. So I was in Miami recently and I talked to a gentleman who was from, I believe he was from Ecuador. He was in the mall shopping, and I noticed a lot of people with suitcases in the mall buying clothes. And so I stopped and I just started a conversation, and I was asking him, why are so many people buying suitcases with clothes? And he explained to me because the clothes were cheaper over here than in his native country. And so he said with his job, when he traveled to the United States, he would buy clothes and then take them back home for him and his family. And so if he were over here now and happened to have a child while he was here, that would be considered birth tourism. So if the child was born in Florida, because he's from South America, would the child be a legal citizen now? So that's what is up in the air, as we say. Critics argue the order is unconstitutional. Okay? When something is unconstitutional, it's not allowed under the U.S. Constitution. Okay? So the Constitution is the highest law of the land. Okay? And it was originated by the forefathers of the country. Some people say it's outdated. Some people want to change it. But it is the highest law of the land, the U.S. Constitution. And it conflicts with more than 125 years, see, of legal precedents. Okay? These are some advanced words. So I hope I am breaking it down so you can understand. Precedents as a past court decision used as a guide for the decisions. So in other words, it's when someone made a decision a long time ago and they're sticking to that decision in the present day. So if my child asked me on Monday, could they go to the party? And I said no. And then they come back on Wednesday and say, Daddy, can I go to the party? And I would say, what was the precedent that I set on Monday? I said no on Monday, and I mean no today. So it's the same thing in the courts. So if they pass a ruling 20 years ago and it lays a precedent of what should and should not happen, that's why you hear attorneys and lawyers say, based on the state of Georgia versus Jay Barksdale, the precedent has been set that you have to watch his English lessons if you want to be fluent in English. That would be the precedent, okay? All righty. Let's continue. The decision could reshape how the U.S. defines who is a citizen and how much power a president has to change that definition. Now, in my humble opinion, I don't think anything is going to come of this. I think that this is just a circus. I think it's going to stay the way it is. I think this is something that just keeps people glued to the television and distracted from being productive in other areas. I just believe it personally, it's probably going to stay the same that it is. But time will tell. We shall see, as we say. Okay? Now, let me say, before we leave on today, make sure you check out some of my other playlists down in the description of today's lesson. I know today has been somewhat advanced with some of these big words, but all of my lessons aren't like that. But every now and then I need to challenge some of my English learners. Okay. Now, before we get out of here, I've got to share with you one of my comments that I received from a subscriber. And they said, I am from Brazil and I can understand what you say. I gave them a thumbs up and I replied, wow, let's go Brazil. What a beautiful country. So I asked in one of my English lessons earlier in the week, am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? Or am I just right? And so I was really encouraged when one of the subscribers from Brazil said they watch and they can understand. Sometimes I purposefully slow down for my beginning English learners so you can follow me. But for the most part, I try to speak at a pace that everyone can follow, and hopefully I don't put you to sleep. Well, that's going to do it for today's English lesson. I hope you have had a great time as much as I have. If you have learned something, be sure to share today's English lesson with a friend. I try to do these English from the news episodes on a daily basis. So I put a lot of work in, and all I ask is if you learned something, make sure you share it with a friend, okay? With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. And as always, I hope you join me on my next English lesson. I'll see you then.